So I just watched the PMQs. I do every Wednesday. Don't have live TV, so I always watch it on catch up. So I'm a little bit late to the party. So I just want to respond to the questions that, conversation. I say conversation, not really conversation, but the things that she was saying to Keir Starmer, and also Ian Blackford also made a statement about this as well. And I listened to her responses to everything being said. And just feel like she's not really listening to the questions, or if she is, she just hasn't really got the answers. She doesn't know how to respond adequately. So the one thing that she keeps churning up again and again is this, she's frozen the energy prices for the next 2 winters, and this is going to save people loads of money. She goes on about Putin's war as well. She goes on about the national insurance. She goes on about the 1p, which is happening next year. So, but it just seems so simple to me. So I don't understand why she can't get this, because it's quite simple mathematics, really. So we are all paying double what we paid last winter, all of us, on our energy bill, regardless of the fact that it's been frozen by her for the average person. So because obviously, if you use more, you'll pay more. If you use less, you'll pay less. Simple. Okay, you would think that she would understand that we are still paying double from what we paid last year. Now, this isn't just the Tories' fault, because this is the Labour government's fault as well, because they were the government before. This has been caused by massive lack of investment in our energy sector over the last 25 years. I've got friends who have friends within the power sector, and they brought this problem like 25 years ago, that we're not going to be sufficient in, not going to produce enough of our own electricity to, provide power for everybody in the UK. And there was needed to be then investment made so that we wouldn't be in this situation. So now she's telling all her, her ministers in charge of all this to accelerate all the projects. She's trying to unbind all the red tape and everything to get on with it. But the horse is already bolted. So, we're not talking about in the next year. This is going to take years to sort out. So we're already paying double and for our energy. And then, so she's trying to justify, she's saying that because it was brought up, obviously, that with the interest rate going up, that people who have mortgages, who are on variable rates, who aren't on a fixed mortgage, are now paying upwards towards £450 additional. Obviously, depending on your mortgage, how much you're paying, etc. On their mortgage. So she was trying to say, yeah, but I'm saving all this money on energy because I've frozen energy, and then I'm reversing the national insurance levy, and I'm giving them back 1 pence. But it's quite simple mathematics, really, Mrs. Truss. Honestly, seriously. If your bills are double what they already were, then you're already paying a lot more on your energy, despite the fact that she's frozen it. And yes, okay, if she hadn't frozen it, it would have tripled in comparison to what it is now for the average user. However, you're still paying more, so you're still worse off than you were last year. And in all likelihood, your wages have, because most people I know, their wages haven't gone up. A lot of employers haven't been able to afford to put the wages up because their energy bills are so high. So you're still trying to pay for the same sort of energy. You might save a little bit by not turning the TV on or turning the thermostat down, but you're still basically going to be paying more than last year. Yeah. And then these poor people who've got mortgages are then having to pay a lot more on their mortgage than they were last year. A lot more than they would have done on their energy. And their wages are still the same. And then you've got people who are going to be on fixes coming to term end, Like some have come into term in this year, some will be next year, and maybe, you know, you might be lucky to be a couple of years down the line. But how are those people going to be able to afford their mortgages? And they still have to pass affordability tests. The houses aren't necessarily going to be worth the same, because the mortgage, if you watch the news about mortgage companies, there's quite a lot of agencies on Sky, on YouTube and everything. You can watch the videos saying that people are going to be in negative equity because their houses aren't going to be worth what they were when they bought them. And how are you supposed to remortgage then? This is like a massive mortgage housing crisis in the mix that is going to, you know, that is in all likelihood going to happen. I mean, you know, I was 21, I think it was, like the last time we had serious issues. And I remember there being huge crisis because so many people had to default on their mortgages and loads of people lost their homes. There was a massive housing crisis because of it, and values of houses just bottomed out and all this kind of thing. So you can't say like, oh, well, I've frozen energy, so that makes it okay that that person is then going to pay more for their mortgage, because it doesn't equal out at all. If you're paying double for your energy, more for your mortgage, you don't have any more wages coming in. You know, like some people are going to have to get second jobs. I mean, I've had to get a second job to help pay for everything, because, you know, I was worried that we wouldn't have enough money for everything. How does it balance out? It doesn't, does it? And then when you really press them about it, because I think it was Nadeem Sawali, whatever his name is, I can never say his bloody name, said, oh, well, it's up to the Bank of England to set the interest rates, not us. We've got nothing to do with it because they're independent, and it's very important that they be independent. And that's true. It is important that they're independent, but the government can still say, look, you know, we're seriously worried about this, because on the one hand, they want people to buy their own homes because that adds to the economy, which obviously then leads to growth. But on the other hand, it is going to scare people off. People aren't going to want to buy their own homes because they're going to be like, well, I'll buy my own home now at, say, 6%. And what if it goes up to 15%? And that's not unheard of, because in the 90s, the interest rate was around 15%. I know people that bought their homes at 15%. And then as the interest went down and they remortgaged, they were able to get a cheaper mortgage as they went along, blah, blah, blah. But the reality is that could happen. And if you're a first-time buyer and your affordability has been, you know, done on 6%, whatever it is now, I think 6.05 or something like that, and then it just keeps going up and up and up, then that affects your affordability. Can you keep affording to pay for it? Are you going to default on your mortgage? You know, and that's why lenders are worried. Not unsurprisingly, really. Because they, you know, the government are telling them to lend money to people who may default on their mortgages through no real fault of their own, because we, the people, don't control the markets and how they, you know, work and stuff like that. We don't have any control over it. So it's not through any fault of our own if we can't afford to then in the future pay for your mortgage. I mean, the only way out of it is to try and tie yourself into a fixed mortgage for a longer term, like 10 years. But a lot of banks won't do that because the market is so volatile. They don't want to give you a 10-year mortgage at 6% when the interest rate could go up to 15%. That, you know, they're not going to do that. And I just don't think she's literally listening. Or if she is listening, she's just being, what's that word? Complicit to it all. She's like ignoring it. She's like, well, you know, she knows that she can't really do anything about it because she can't control the interest rate. But she shouldn't then be encouraging people. I mean, lowering the stamp duty, I mean, that's great for a first-time buyer, but no good for a first-time buyer if they then in 5 years can't afford to pay for their house. And there's no point ignoring everyone's questions. And I'm not a big fan of Keir Starmer, I have to say. I call him Smarmy. Smarmy car. Starmer. I don't really like him. I don't think he's the best leader for the Labour Party I've ever seen, to be honest. But he made a point, you know, that they keep going on at him, going, "Oh well, you haven't said what your policy is on the energy thing." But it was actually Labour's idea to freeze the bloody thing. They were going on, "We ought to freeze it, we ought to freeze it," and then all of a sudden the Conservatives have gone, "Yeah, we ought to freeze it," and then have a go at him. And they voted against the national insurance rise, and now they're trying to have a go at them for saying, "Well, you've only just agreed with it," or something like that. She was saying, and it was like, but we didn't vote for it in the first place, you silly cow. I didn't vote for it. I thought we should pay for it for our council tax, because social care, I think, is already comes through your council tax, and I don't think a lot of people would mind paying a few extra quid a month towards social care, because that's people's parents, isn't it? People's parents and grandparents. And so, like, why would we object to helping our parents and grandparents? I just, can't see it. She's just bloody daft. She's so daft, and the government are on a different planet, I swear. They're not listening to the common people at all. They're just not listening to us. You know, I mean, me and my husband were not classed as high earners. My husband's around about an average earner, although that will go up a little bit because he's just become a manager. But because I've got disabilities, I can't work full time. I can only work part time. And, I've increased my hours a tiny bit. I can't go any higher than that, because then I'll just end up being ill, and there's no point. I'm just kind of like defeating the purpose of having a few extra pounds coming to the house. I'm still earning well under the income tax. But together our combined income is going to be about 40,000, which is about average in this area. Because I'm in the southwest, I'm in the Cotswolds. And a lot of people around here are like really high earners, and the housing market around here is ridiculous. There's a bloody house just up the road, literally up the road from here, went for 365,000, and me and my husband would love to own our own home, but when the houses are that expensive, like a cheap house round here is 300 grand, and it's just unaffordable. We can't do it. And especially don't want to be buying at the moment where the bloody interest keeps going up, because we'll just be in a situation where we start off paying a fairly decent on our mortgage and end up with a frigging massive flipping mortgage that we can't afford to bloody pay. And at the moment, at least we're in a secure rental. She's literally on cloud cuckoo land, this woman. She's just not listening. She keeps churning out the same bullshit over and over again about the energy crisis and how we've frozen it, and we've done this with the income tax, and we've done this with the 1 pence on the income tax and everything. Things that would help people. It's getting inflation down, so our shopping is not so flipping high. Reducing the duty on fuel, because it's absolutely bloody stupidly expensive and shouldn't be. We've got one of the most expensive fuels in Europe, and how is that right? It's not right at all, is it? Ridiculous. And we're not earning enough for what we're paying. Everything's gone up. My broadband's gone up. My mobiles have gone up. My house insurance went up. I ended up cancelling it because I couldn't afford it anymore. Just everything it's just gone up and up and up. Rent's gone up, everything. I think it was an extra £150 I had to pay, and that was before the energy doubled as well. So it's just on cloud cuckoo. So it's all very well and good, when you're earning the money that you do, to be like in this rose color, tinted flipping world that the Tory party seem to be in, because they just don't seem to understand that there's this massive mortgage crisis looming, where the chances are that a lot of people will lose their homes. It's a huge problem. Even Martin Lewis has been screaming about it the last week, saying you need to do something about this, and quickly, because people are going to lose their homes. They're not going to be able to afford it. I do feel sorry for them. I really do. I feel so sorry for homeowners at the moment. I mean, if you've recently bought and you're fixed for a few years, then phew. But it's not the case for everybody, unfortunately. Honestly, she's so stupid. She's driving me mad. All her ministers every day coming on, churning out the same shit. I mean, that bloody coffee was on Sky yesterday, going on about bloody the NHS and everything. And they don't tell you, do they, that they're paying thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds on bank nurses and agency nurses because they haven't got enough nurses to cover the wards. And it's costing them thousands more than it needs to. If you actually paid the nurses a decent bloody wage from start and help sponsor their training, it would make it would make that job a lot more attractive. And then you wouldn't have to pay thousands on bank nurses and agency nurses. And you've got all these doctors leaving, and they're going on about, well, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, the ABCDs. Well, how are you going to do that if you haven't got nurses and you haven't got doctors? How? Literally in cloud cuckoo land. And the other thing that she's been going on about as well is about how they're going to build all this stuff. You know, they're going to make us industry amazing and provide more jobs and lots in the building, and contractors are going to build more houses, and we're going to be gigafactories, and we're going to build more wind things, and we're going to make self-sufficient and all this. But there's a huge shortage on skilled labour here in Britain because kids coming out of school, they don't want to be a plumber, a carpenter, an engineer, etc., because the money is shit. And if you're self-employed, it is so frigging stressful, and the government make it so difficult for you to hold on to your own earnings, because it's almost like you're disadvantaged being self-employed. I know, I agree with you, Molly. It's a nightmare. It's all well and good, but does that mean we're going to have to import skilled labour? And then everybody will be up in arms about bloody immigration then, and migration and blah, blah, blah. Just like one thing after the other, isn't it? Or they'll pay for big companies like EDF to come in and build a nuclear power station, which is what they've been doing recently, instead of actually being able to have our own flipping. I mean, our energy should be self-sufficient. If we'd invested in it properly, we'd have been completely self-sufficient. We wouldn't have to import from Europe. We'd have our own proper storage for our own gas. We'd have loads of energy being done, loads of renewables. If we'd invested over the last 25 years, we could have been really self-sufficient. But now we're in this situation where we're still importing loads of power from everywhere else. And I'm sorry, people, but some of you are stupid, going on about, well, we only have 4% gas from Russia. Where do you think Europe gets their frigging gas from? If we're importing from Europe our power and they're getting their gas from bloody Russia, then even though we might not be directly importing from Russia, we are indirectly importing from Russia, because we're taking power from European people like Germany, whatever, who are having Russian fuel and energy. So we are, whether you like it or not, we are importing our energy. Oh, so annoying. Because you could just see, if they just invested 25 years ago, we would not be in this situation. And now they're all like, ooh, we need to invest in energy. You should have done it fucking 25 years ago, you bloody knob. Even Blair was going, oh, we should invest in nuclear power. Did they build one station? No, they bloody didn't. Not one. Oh, anyway, that's my rant.